Hi, I'm going to talk about the ARP 2600. Now, we're in the 21st century and this was developed in about 1970, but for some reason they're still around and they are quite different from modern synthesizers. So a lot of people get access to an ARP 2600, but they don't really know what to do with it. And unless it's a digital version, which has got presets, you can be stuck and you can even have a difficult time getting any sound at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about how we can get started with the ARP 2600, whether it be this is a Korg clone or a Behringer clone or an original ARP. So if we look at the control panel, I've set up a very basic patch and you'll notice there are no patch cords at all. When I actually use this for real, I've got patch cords everywhere. But the designers of this made it so that you can get sound out of it without any patch cords at all. So we're going to take that approach. Now, there's lots and lots of faders and things. If you look here, I've got it set so that almost everything, all the faders mainly, are down. Some of them are at 50%, some of them are 25%, one of them is at 75%. But everything else is basically down. Now the architecture is it's got 3 oscillators and those oscillators actually generate the basic sound. In our case, because we're just using it by itself, it doesn't have a low frequency oscillator for making vibrato. So what we have to do is we have to use oscillator 2 to do vibrato. So we can use oscillator 1 and oscillator 3 to make sound, and oscillator 2 is our vibrato oscillator. What happens is that oscillator 1 and oscillator 2 go through this mixer, which is here, and then they go into a filter, which is here, and then they go into an amplifier, and then they go out. So if you look here, I've got everything turned off except for oscillator 1. And if I play it, we hear a square wave. Now, one thing about the ARP 2600 is that the tuning is variable. So I always use an electronic tuner on it so that I can set oscillator 1 and oscillator 3 so that when I play an A, I get an A. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck. So they are tuned, and now I have got my oscillator 1 going through the filter. I can turn it down and I can turn up oscillator 3. Oscillator 2 is being a low frequency oscillator. It doesn't make what we want to make. So we have to use oscillator 1 and oscillator 3. Okay, so then it's going into a filter. Now, you'll notice I've put little green dots on here. They're the things that you can change. If I go to my filter, I've got a green dot on the frequency. You notice I'm playing it, and I'm actually using my thumb to change the filter. When I'm playing these in performances, I do that all the time. Now I've got the resonance set initialized about halfway. I can take it down. And I get more of a brassy sound, or I can make it very high. I get a very synthesizer type sound. So we've got our 2 oscillators going into the mixer. We've also got a noise generator here, which is hardwired in. So just changing the different controls, which I've marked in green here, like the frequency or cutoff frequency and the resonance, I can get different effects. Also, I've got a very generic envelope set up here. I can change the attack. one thing to remember is that this control here is the master volume. It says VCA, but that really means volume. Now, some people think this is the master volume, but it's actually it turns into a drone, and then it will never stop. So that is not the correct control for the gain. This here. And also we've got a spring reverb which you can add to taste. But I often leave it down here. Okay, so that's the basic patch. If you start with the system configured like this, you've got a square wave, you've got a sawtooth wave, you've got noise, and you can change the filter. You can do an awful lot just with that. Often when I'm doing improvisations with various rock groups, that is basically all I need. Okay, so if you've got an ARP 2600 that you've got access to and you want to learn how to do it and not play with the presets, now you've got something to start you off.